This video might be a little late coming, given the fact that we are now slightly over halfway through the season. The Bulls have already played 48, I believe, of their 82 games, with another one later today, but I figured it's as good of time as any leading up to the All-Star game. All-Star voting has been completed, and that is to discuss my mid-season grades for the Chicago Bulls roster. So in today's video, I'll be grading each individual player and their performance thus far in the season, and I'll also be comparing it to how you guys graded each player as noted in the Discord. And in case you are not on the Bulls Central Discord server, the link to that can be found in the description, and you can also add in your votes there. So with that said, let's get into it. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, a few callouts and caveats to how I'll be grading these players. That way, hopefully you won't have people going at me in the comments for why I gave a certain player said grade over another. So the grading scale will be your traditional A through F school grading, if you will, and the grades are based on how a given player has done relative to their role and expectations of the team. So as an example, a grade of B for Lonzo Ball, but a grade of A for Javonte Green does not mean that I think Javonte Green is a better player than Lonzo Ball, but rather how they perform relative to their expectations. Those aren't the grades that I gave for those players, by the way, just using that as an example. The other small call out is that I did not include some players. I didn't include players that were once with the team but were subsequently waived, guys like Alize Johnson as an example, or any of the 10-day contract players that did not remain with the team. I also did not include any two-way player contracts, which might not be fair since I know Tyler Cook and Malcolm Hill have shown up very well in their time with the Bulls, but I wanted to keep it consistent with the players who are actually on fully guaranteed deals with this roster. Oh, I also did not include Patrick Williams since he really only played 4 games this season. So I'm going to start with the starting lineup and kind of work my way down, and I'll be spending more time with the starters and going through some of the bench players a little more quickly. So let's start with Zach LaVine, and this one is pretty easy to me. I don't know how you cannot give Zach an A with the continued high level of play that we have seen from him. I think he's absolutely going to be an all-star yet again this season, and what I've liked seeing about Zach is his demeanor and all-around decision-making on the court has improved. Maybe not most recently in the last few games or so, but I think obviously that comes with playing alongside a more talented roster. Yes, sometimes Zach still makes those plays we saw last year when he loses focus, takes some bad shots, still complains to the refs when he doesn't get the call that he's looking for rather than getting back on defense. Like, I would like to see those things go away. But he's gotten better at managing his emotions and playing better team basketball than he ever has before. Now, Zach's numbers overall have actually dipped slightly, especially his scoring, but that's to be expected when you add guys like DeMar DeRozan to the team and, of course, Lonzo Ball. Zach was averaging 27.4 points per game last season, while this year he's putting up 24.9 points per game. His efficiency has also dipped slightly as well, not shooting as well as he did last year, going from shooting 51, 42, 85 splits to now 49, 40, 86. Again, they're minor dips, so it's not something to be concerned about. His assist and rebound numbers have also gone down slightly, but what's more encouraging is how his turnover numbers have dropped substantially. Last season, he turned the ball over 3.5 times per game, while this season, it's the lowest it's been in his career since joining the Bulls at 2.8. Of course, again, it helps when you have better talent around you when you're not the sole scorer and ball handler on the team. So overall, I'm impressed and encouraged by what I have seen from LaVine, and obviously he's a big reason for the Bulls' success so far this season. On the Discord, you guys felt very similarly. We had a couple Bs, which, by the way, in order to include a letter rating, you had to have at least 1 vote, so you can ignore the 1 votes for each of the remaining letters. But as you can see, we had 87 A's, 3 Bs. I don't think it's outlandish to give Zach a B. I definitely disagree with it, but I'm not going to be mad for whoever actually gave him a B rating. Next up, we've got DeMar DeRozan, and this is another easy one for me. Look, DeRozan absolutely deserves an A for his performance and level of contributions to this Bulls team. I think DeRozan has exceeded our expectations in how he has shown up for the Bulls, for a guy that most of the league had started writing off, saying that he doesn't fit in today's NBA because he can't shoot threes, which, by the way, he's shooting threes at the highest clip he has in his career. But none of us would have expected him to go from not being an all-star since 2018 to now now being an all-star starter and likely an all-NBA player with how well he has played this season. DeRozan is averaging the most points he's had since 2017, back when he was on the Raptors at 26.3 points per game, and he's doing it on the best efficiency he's had in his career at near 50% from the field, and get this, 33% from three, and doing it on 1.8 attempts per game. Obviously, it's still not good by normal NBA standards, but for DeRozan to make that kind of jump where teams have to at least respect his shot from outside and defend him when taking those threes is huge, a huge win for the Bulls as it relates to their floor spacing. DeRozan also has the highest player efficiency rating of his career, which is insane that he's putting up career-type numbers in his 13th season in the league at the age of 32. And I think what has been the most impressive to me about DeMar DeRozan, aside from all the numbers that I just mentioned, is how well he has shown up in the clutch, as I believe he's still number 1 or number 2 in fourth quarter points and efficiency. And of course, how can we forget those 2 back-to-back game winners earlier this season? In the Discord, you guys felt the same way. 88 A's, 4 B's. The B's really don't make sense to me on this one, even more so than LaVine, because DeRozan has absolutely balled out and has been a huge catalyst for the Bulls where they are today in the standings. Next, we've got Lonzo Ball. Now, for Lonzo, you guys know that I always was hesitant about the Bulls signing Lonzo leading up into the offseason, and even when the Bulls brought him in, I still wasn't sure if this was the right move for the team as their long-term solution that would really get them over the hump. And right away, I was proven wrong, because Lonzo Ball showed out to be a great fit with what this Bulls team needed in terms of their perimeter defense, which they didn't have at all the year prior, and of course, his court vision and playmaking. It's also been a big help to have his outside shooting as an added scoring threat from deep. Now, I didn't give Lonzo an A because he has been somewhat inconsistent in having really bad nights shooting, and I thought his assist numbers would actually be a lot higher than what they are, given he's playing alongside 3 scorers. He also was going to be playing more of a playmaking role, point guard role, than what he had been in New Orleans. So I just expected more from him in terms of his general passing. So that's why I had a hard time giving him an A. I know some people also take injuries into consideration when grading their performance, but I'm not going to do that because injuries are not something a player can control, and that's part of the game. But for Lonzo, who's actually averaging a career low in assists, acting as the Bulls' starting point guard, is a little disappointing to me. His scoring also has dipped a bit from last year, averaging 13 points per game compared to 14.6 last season. He has been much more efficient, though, than he's ever had in his career, shooting the best from 3 in his career, and he's also playing the best defense in terms of his steals per game, blocks per game, and his defensive rating. In the Discord, also mixed reaction as well, majority of A's at 57, but also 38 B's. Next, we've got Nikola Vucevic. Now, Vucevic has probably been one of the more polarizing players on this Bulls roster in terms of the cycle of how fans feel about him when it's one day they love him and they knew that he always had it in him, to the next day that he's trash and he should be traded ASAP. Now, I personally am in the middle of the road of that thinking. I do think Vucevic's performance has been somewhat disappointing this season. It's not what we expected from an all-star caliber level player, and knowing how much we had to give up for him to actually bring him into this team, also I recognize that he's still a very impactful player down low, and I am not at all in the trade Vooch camp. Like, the guy is still averaging 16.5 points per game, 11.3 rebounds, and is one of the better passing bigs in the league, but his shooting numbers are well down, which is a problem. He's shooting 43% from the field, 33% from 3, but a change that we have seen from Vucevic is actually he's playing some of the best defense of his career. Maybe not so much in recent games, and I'm not saying that it's elite defense either. It's arguably still average defense overall, but for Vucevic, it's good defense. It's improved defense. Now, because of Vucevic's subpar performance this season, yes, he's had some really good games and he's still a very impactful player, but his bad games often overshadow what he's been able to do. And for that reason, I'm giving Vucevic a B, and it's sliding closer to a C range, probably a B- if I had to get specific. In the Discord, you guys tend to agree we had 78 Bs, we actually had 6 As, which I was surprised by. I didn't think that Vooch would actually get any As. 11 Cs and 1 F. An F is a little harsh. The guy is still a double-double machine who can space the floor and crash the boards. He's been disappointing, but does not deserve an F rating. Next, we've got Javonte Green, which again, yes, typically the starter, but that power forward spot has kind of been all over the place with injuries, protocols. Obviously, Patrick Williams was the starting 4, but I'm not including him in these grades. So for Javonte, I mean, he's one of my bigger surprises this season for the Bulls, at least when you compare him to his role last season after we traded for him. Like, Javonte Green was barely able to crack the rotation that season and now has become a starter and actually playing an impactful role for this team, especially on defense. He hustles, knows his role, does whatever he's asked, and doesn't let ego get in the way. And that's such an important trait to have on a team. Javonte is also putting up some of the best numbers of his career, but that's also in part because he's playing the most minutes he's ever had in his career as well. I gave Javonte a B, which most of you in the Discord felt as well, with 66 Bs and 28 As. Next, let's do Coby White. Now, Coby has been slumping more recently, and obviously Coby missed some time to start the season and also entered protocol shortly after he finally did return. Coby then went on an absolute tear and strung together some of his best games when guys were injured, and I think the thing I said about that run that impressed me the most, because I've always said the biggest issue with Coby White is his consistency, because he'll have these amazing games followed up by very poor ones. So you had like 10 straight games where he played incredibly well, and you were finally like, he's done it. He's finally grown into a player where you know what to expect of him. And then, of course, he goes on to struggle more recently, especially with his 3-point shooting. All that being said, though, Coby has done well in taking on a role that's hard for a guy who was in the starting lineup last season to now coming off the bench, and he's really been a big piece off the bench for the Bulls as their primary scorer. I did give Coby a B because he has actually exceeded my expectations of him, but the inconsistency factor is still there, and I have to say I'm a little surprised by the results of the poll in the Discord. You had guys with 66 A's for Coby, 25 B's, 4 C's, and 2 D's. I did not expect that many A's, but maybe most of you guys had voted when he was really riding that wave of good games last week. Next, let's go to Dosunmu. So I mentioned this in my interview with Casey Johnson, that I personally think Ayo has been the biggest surprise this season for the Chicago Bulls, more so than DeMar DeRozan, because for me, my assumption was that Ayo was barely going to be getting any playing time and cracking into the rotation with how loaded the backcourt was. The fact that he was going to be playing on a good team, which likely would mean he would spend some time in the G League to get some run and development behind him, kind of like what we're seeing with the Bulls' other rookie, Marko Simonovic. And yet, Ayo comes out making the most of an opportunity with guys being out of the lineup, playing some big minutes, more recently getting starter level minutes when he's playing near 40 minutes a game, and he's been getting it done on both ends of the floor, playing high level defense and incredibly efficient on offense. Maybe not the last 2 games, but prior to that, he was knocking down, it seemed like, every shot that he was putting up. You probably saw it in my hot takes video from the other day, but there is a legitimate case for Ayo making an all-rookie team at the rate that he's going. He's shooting 55% from the floor, 45% from 3, and more recently, he's bringing up those rebounding and assist numbers as well. So for that reason, I'm giving Ayo an A. He has been phenomenal for a second-round pick rookie, and people also felt the same way in the Discord with 91 A's for Ayo and 2 B's. Like, Ayo's grades were even higher than LaVine and DeRozan's. That's pretty crazy. Anyway, moving along. I'll go through the rest of these a little more quickly so this video doesn't drag on. But next up, let's do Alex Caruso. And I mean, you guys know how I feel about Caruso. I did a whole dedicated video on the guy and what he means to this Bulls team, which has become even more clear when you look at his off-court numbers, and especially with the Bulls playing without him now. The defensive tenacity that he brings, the hustle he plays with on every possession, the glue guy for this Bulls roster, yeah, I had to give him an A. And the Discord was in agreement with 91 A's and 2 B's. Damn, that's even better than Ayo's tally, actually. Then there is Derrick Jones Jr. Derrick Jones Jr. has been another low-key surprise to me. I actually didn't think he would be as impactful for the Bulls outside of just providing some athleticism and wing defense, but if you look at his impact on the floor, his strong defense on the wing, but also the fact that he's stepped up and taken on roles for which he's not used to playing, like starting at the 4 spot, and was even playing the 5 when Vucevic was out, and he did it pretty well, I might add. That's why it was so unfortunate when we learned that Derrick Jones Jr., like Lonzo and Caruso, would also be out for 6 to 8 weeks. So because it's yet another impactful defensive player that also gets you some size, I did give Derrick Jones Jr. a B, and the Discord had similar results as you can see here. Next, we've got Troy Brown Jr. Now, Troy Brown Jr., I've actually been kind of disappointed with this season because I really thought that Troy Brown was going to be a key piece off of the Bulls bench on what we saw last season before he got injured after we traded for him. He's still young, has room left to grow, but I thought that Troy Brown was going to be DeMar's primary backup. And he's had some good numbers or good games here and there. Like in that game where he tallied 6 steals, that was great. But overall, he just hasn't shown up very well. So I actually gave him a D, lower than what you guys graded him. 63 C's for Troy Brown Jr., 17 B's, and 11 D's. Then there is Tony Bradley, who has been okay. I have liked his intensity and strength down low in the post in some games. There's also been some games where I'm just like, this guy should not be in the NBA. But overall, he's been an okay backup center. I gave Tony Bradley a C, fairly similar results from the Discord too. Then we've got Matt Thomas, who I'll admit has done better than I expected in showing up with the team being shorthanded. His defense is still really bad, but he hustles and has been hitting his outside shots consistently. I did give Matt Thomas a C, similar results from the Discord as well. And then finally, Alfonso McKinney, who the Bulls initially brought on a 10-day contract to then signing him for the remainder of the season while waiving Alize Johnson. McKinney has shown up nicely in certain games, but nothing to get too excited about. I gave McKinney a C, somewhat similar results in the Discord, although McKinney did get quite a few Bs, which I was a little surprised by. So there you have it. Those are the grades for all of the individual players on the Bulls roster that are at least full-time roster spots. We did also vote for Billy Donovan and the front office and their grades, as well as the Bulls team as a whole, but I'll likely do a separate video on the coaching staff and front office, as this one is already pretty long as it is. If you didn't get a chance to vote for your grades, feel free to go ahead and do so. You can also leave your thoughts on the grades in the comments below. Don't forget to catch the Bulls game later today. But until then, guys, as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.